Hello, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of Never Seen It. This is a podcast about movies that we haven't seen yet. Of course, I'm your host today. My name is Trent, and sitting with me is Betsy.
I had a birthday last week.
You
I'm
did.
older since the last you heard me.
Betsy, happy birthday to you and anybody else out there who has birthdays in the month of April.
April babies.
Yeah. So, Betsy, we're continuing on with our series called I'm with the Band. Now, as I keep on saying, bands come in all shapes and sizes, and today is going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing in the past couple of weeks. What are we covering today, Betsy?
It's our first real-life band of the month, band group, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
It's the movie about NWA. We're watching Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, and Betsy, if I were to say that there is a tier list of movie that I have wanted to see on this show for the longest time, this is probably at the way top. Not only because it was well reviewed back in 2015 when it came out, but I just like this era of music history. It was back when you and I were both kind of in elementary school going into middle school, and we were kind of discovering what modern music was becoming. This, of course, being the early to mid 90s. Specifically, what we are talking about today is the emergence of West Coast rap. Now, rap had really been a thing since the kind of late 70s and 80s with people coming out of New York, and that kind of culture just spreading across the country and the world. But there is this West Coast sound that kind of came out of nowhere, and because rap was getting established as a legitimate form of music that a lot of people liked. But Betsy, about the movie itself, what can you tell me? What do you know about it? What do you remember hearing about it? Because it's been a while.
So all of the things you just described, even though I was alive in the early and mid 90s, I was blissfully unaware of rap music because my parents always had oldies on the radio. I didn't find out about this group and this kind of music until much, much, much later. But of course, by the time they decided to make a movie about this story, obviously I knew who Ice Cube was. I sure as shit didn't know that he had a son who looks exactly like him playing him in the movie.
Which is really funny because we've actually covered two movies that O'Shea Jackson Jr. has appeared in.
And yet I don't think Ice Cube himself has ever been on this podcast.
Nope, not in any form.
So I know it's kind of the story about how they formed, how they became a really popular group. I believe you said Paul Giamatti is in this movie.
Yeah, I think he plays their manager. And if I'm honest here, I'm really hoping that they're going to be covering not just the guys, not just the music, but the controversies that kind of came out because they got so popular and a lot of the stuff that they were rapping about.
They were rapping about real things in their lives that they were going through, especially coming from a place like Compton. Everybody has this idea of what Compton is, mostly because of this group, I would imagine.
And you know, if you've heard us before, we have described ourselves as being very white. We're from South Dakota. We're not from any kind of large metropolitan area that has a lot of diversity and things like that. But we're very open-minded. We like all sorts of different kinds of music. And if you don't like this kind of music, if you don't like this subject matter, you can skip this episode. But I feel like this is going to be a fascinating conversation.
But I've also heard that the movie is very good.
Yeah.
So I think it's the kind of thing that even if you are not familiar with this time and place, like me, that you can get something out of it from the storytelling perspective.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm going to tell more about my history with this kind of music and this era of music after we go and watch Straight Outta Compton. We will be right back and talk about it. And that was Straight Outta Compton. Betsy, how you feeling after that one?
Listen, I might not be well versed in the material here. I don't know the stories of these guys, But I do know that this was all extremely well documented at the time it was happening. This was something that was all over the news, what these guys were up to, how their music was affecting the nation, how people were responding to this. And of course, the fallout is literally documented forever in their music.
Yeah. This movie is halfway a documentary of the time and halfway a biography of all these guys.
And I really liked it. And I think it's because we are trying to pack so much in here. My feeling is most of this is probably true or pretty fucking close to the truth.
I think so. And based on, the people who are involved, they are going to gloss over some stuff. Literally, Betsy and I were just talking about the D. Barnes incident. Apparently, that incident was supposed to be in the movie. It was filmed, but it got cut out of the final print.
But the guys this movie is about were involved in the production of the film. Ice Cube helped produce it.
Yeah.
They got a say in what does and doesn't go in this movie. And frankly, they include enough to represent that they were not squeaky clean choir boys when they were little.
Oh, yeah.
Eazy-E starts the movie by selling drugs. These guys show how they're all waving guns around and beating up people and threatening people. They know what they were when they were young men. But the movie's also really compelling because if you take away the fact it's NWA, that it's Dr. Dre, that it's Ice Cube, it is a really good story for a movie. It is about the rise and fall of what happens to a bunch of young guys who kind of come from nothing, get famous, how you deal with fame, the fallout of fame, and how it really affects your life long term. And they don't even get to cover what the effect of this group had on other generations. They kind of touch on it just a tiny bit in the credits, like, Eminem talking about what this music meant for him.
Yeah, they go all the way up to when this kind of music becomes mainstream. Because the time period that we're talking about here, it was just the people who were into rap music, and they kind of wrap it around the news footage talking about rap music, about that kind of culture from a distance, not really owning the fact that this is really, really popular, guys. And yes, if you followed, rap music from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s to now, you're going to know a lot of these stories already. But the thing I think that I'm most surprised at is all the stuff that I thought was true that apparently wasn't. Like when I was saying in the intro, I thought that NWA was an early 90s and mid 90s phenomenon. No. There's a pretty big chunk of time here in the 80s, and I had no idea that they really got their start back then.
40 years ago. The movie starts in 1986, Trent.
Yeah. So that just tells you just how long this whole thing has been going on, and the stories about Dr. Dre and Eazy-E and Ice Cube and everybody else involved here. Yeah, the music is important, but also their manager, Jerry, who is portrayed in the movie by Paul Giamatti. I had no idea that this movie, number one, was going to involve so much of the story about the business side, but I think that's really what got in the way. They talk about here where everything would have been fine if they had proper representation. Ice Cube would have got all the credit that he deserved. Dr. Dre would have been able to, reap even more benefits from him actually producing the stuff. But because these guys were literally just kids, they had no idea how the business works. So they got taken advantage of. And I think that is the most fascinating part of this movie.
It's also the problem of getting in on the ground floor. 1986 is still very, very early days of rap. It really hadn't taken the whole country by storm. There were just pockets of people who knew about this genre and respected it as an art form.
It was just a New York thing because there's a lot of references here, and there's some New York music in here as well, like fucking Run DMC and Public Enemy and shit like that people knew about in the 80s that had its own sound, but you never heard anything like what was coming out of NWA.
They refer to it as reality rap shit. They are rapping about where they grew up, what it is like in Los Angeles at this time in America. And it's angry and it's hardcore compared to what was coming out of New York, which is more like party fun kind of rap.
Yeah.
It's a little squeakier. It's a little cleaner. And these guys are like, no, we're going to do something
No,
completely
this is
different.
the real shit.
But going back to the thing with Jerry, he's one of the people that sees it coming. He understands that this is going to be popular. That's usually what happens in these situations. There's one guy in the room who can see the future, and he knows these guys are it. And so he believes in them when nobody else does. But unfortunately, that means he also knows what they don't know, and he can take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, and I almost wish that they would have explored that whole thing more as to, okay, how was he taking advantage? Because I can guess, like, you get one guy under contract, Eazy-E, and then some of the money kind of trickles out from there. And Easy, because he's the guy who was stringing everybody else along, he's bringing them on tour with them and providing all the partying and the ladies and everything under the sun. They're living it up. They're having a great time. But there comes a point where somebody like Ice Cube thought to himself, you know, man, you keep promising that there's going to be all this money raining from the heavens, and I haven't seen shit. I know you guys are living it up because you're fucking eating lobster for breakfast and we're getting takeout.
And you're all having a meeting that we're not involved in.
Exactly.
Because it's all the business shit.
Yeah, the business is being taken care of by these two people who are actually under contract. Nobody else is.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where the conflict really starts. And yeah, really looking at this from the outside, you've heard of Death Row Records. You've heard of maybe Interscope. You've heard all these different names that are involved in the music industry back in the day. But I never knew that NWA was under, what was it called?
Ruthless?
Ruthless, yeah. I didn't know he was under that. I didn't know that the other guys in the group were not signed. I had no idea about any of this stuff, and I think that stuff is just fascinating.
It's, again, the small-time stuff. I like how the movie focuses on Eazy-E most of it, because he's the one we probably know the least about, as far as when you're looking from a lens of 2015.
Sure.
When you're looking back, I knew who Dr. Dre was in 2015. I know who Ice Cube is. I don't, even in 2026, really know much about Eazy-E. But the way he's shown here, he's the guy with the fucking vision. He's got a little bit of money because he's been selling drugs.
Yeah.
And it's his money that basically gets them started. He gets them off the ground. He is not the talent. He doesn't know how the fuck to rap. It's the guys in the group that say, you know what? We need you to do it because this is about you. This song is about Eazy-E, so it makes the most sense for you to do it. And it's a fucking rough start when he gets involved.
Yeah.
But because he becomes not just the business guy, but the talent, and those two things get tangled up.
Yeah, and there's also these conversations about how Ice Cube was the guy writing all the lyrics. There has always been controversy behind that aspect of NWA. Because a lot of the guys in the group, and even just the fans in general, have surmised over the decades that really NWA was all Ice Cube. Because Dr. Dre, yes, he was doing the producing behind the actual equipment, but Ice Cube was writing all the lyrics, and Eazy-E was just there to kind of catch everything that was falling out of him. He was really the talent, but because basically he had this handshake deal with another group that he was already in, he could not actually rap on this record. Now, obviously, that all gets worked out in the end, but yeah, it's just these guys being kind of dipshits and not really knowing what it is that they're doing, because in their mind, they just wanted to talk about what was happening in their lives, what was happening in their relationships, what was happening in their neighborhoods.
They say it at the end of the movie, man, we just wanted to make music for the neighborhood.
Yeah, we wanted to be ghetto superstars, as they say.
That's all they cared about. They didn't have the vision that they could be heard around Los Angeles, that they could be heard outside of the state of California, that they could become these national stars.
It goes back to that disco club owner where he says, guys, you're never going to get this on the radio. All this cursing, all this adult content, nobody is ever going to play this because they can't.
Yeah, because these are the guys with the lack of vision.
Exactly. All you really need to do is pass it around your neighborhood, and it is going to organically rise out of nothing.
Well, Trent, the other thing the movie is doing is showing us what is going on in these different pockets of America, and especially what's going on over these 10 years in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And the thing I was thinking was, In the way that somebody like the Beatles came along and blew up rock music and they kind of kicked the door open in the 1960s, that was the cultural explosion then. Rap music had its own cultural explosion in the 80s. The country was primed for it in the way that the 60s were for rock music.
Yeah, and just think about the era. We're about 20 plus years past the Civil Rights Act. Yes, there was a whole bunch of upheaval in America. There's a whole lot of people against it. But again, progress is slow. You have to let people get used to the idea. And obviously not everybody was okay with it. But the more time goes on, in theory, the better it gets.
But to say it was all better now is a fucking lie. And these guys showed up and said, yeah, that America you think exists doesn't fucking exist.
Not for us.
And this is our art, and this is how we're going to express ourselves and show you what we have witnessed in America.
I love at their little press conference after they got arrested in Detroit, Ice Cube is out there saying, our art is a reflection of our reality. There is a whole message here about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, everything that makes America great. But somehow, because of what you are saying and because there is a large enough group of people that doesn't like it, who the fuck cares if you don't like it? You don't like it? Don't listen to it. It's real simple.
It wouldn't catch on if the people listening to it didn't agree with the message because they too had seen themselves in the lyrics of this music.
Yeah, it resonated in a lot of different pockets of America. When they're going on tour, it's not just about, partying it up and having a great time. No, there is resentment in the minds of the people coming to these shows. And you see it when they're getting fucking chased by the cops in Detroit. You see everybody chanting, fuck the police.
And you see it also where they are. They show the tour is going through places like Houston, large black community. Philadelphia, large black community. Detroit is the place that the cops preemptively threatened them. They've got 24 cops standing there saying, you will not do this and you will not do that. And if you sing that song that goes F the police, we will arrest you on the spot. You can't fucking do that. They didn't incite a riot. Most of this movie, they are just standing around existing and cops go out of their way to fuck with these guys' day. Because that is their life. When they're recording an album in Torrance, which is a much whiter neighborhood than where they come from, the cops immediately show up and they're like, get on the ground. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Do you belong here? And they don't believe them, even when a white guy intervenes.
Yeah, when Paul Giamatti comes out and starts cursing them out, he's allowed to do it. But the other guys who are just standing around having themselves some lunch, they can't. They can't just exist and be black in a white neighborhood.
So the movie is very thorough in reminding you this is their daily life.
Yeah, it also reminds the audience that there is a reason why these guys trusted Jerry. Because Jerry was on their side in a lot of different ways, except for the ways that actually mattered in their pocketbooks. So you can't just look at the movie and you can't just say, oh, they were stupid for going along with this guy. He's just stringing them along for whatever. No, he had their fucking back.
And he proved it enough times that they went along with it maybe longer than they should have. But one at a time, they kind of figure out, I don't think this guy's on the level. I don't think this situation is to my best personal interest. Ice Cube just got there first. Ice Cube's like, no, I'm getting screwed, and I'm not about to be screwed. And he goes off and starts a massive solo career.
Yeah. He on his own become bigger than the group he came from. That never happens. And again, this goes back to what I really don't remember about this era. I don't remember Ice Cube beefing with NWA. I don't remember fucking diss tracks coming out about each other. I know that about the late 90s and the East Coast, West Coast rap stuff, but I had no idea that these guys ever beefed with each other.
I also didn't really understand that NWA is a super group. These guys all kind of were doing their own things, and then they came together and made this group.
Kind of, to a point. I mean, Public Enemy was another one of these groups where you had different talents coming from different backgrounds coming together to make albums. And they all kind of complement each other in the way that a lot of bands do. But like, again, going back to something that I didn't know, I did not know that Eazy-E was going around trying to make amends with everybody and wanted to make another NWA record outside the influence of Jerry. And literally, it was apparently coming together right when he was getting sick.
This is another kind of common story I feel like happens. Even the fucking Beatles, bringing up the Beatles again, they were on the cusp of getting back together when John Lennon died.
Yeah.
When that happened, they had been hanging out. They had been talking. They were like, we've had a long break. We would have got Beatles in the 80s. And it never happened. But this is what usually goes on with groups like this. You remember after distance and after time and space from the whole anxiety that you were all feeling when NWA was at its peak. You remember you're still friends with these guys and what fun you had at the beginning.
There's also a maturity happening in the interim where you're just in your fucking 20s and you're hanging out, having a great time, making money. But then you start learning about the industry. You start learning about business. You start learning about yourself and your outside relationships. You are becoming a man, and the NWA group is when you're fucking boys.
How dare they sneak a coming-of-age movie inside this movie?
I know. But I think, Betsy, it also goes back to another group that they made a documentary about that we really like, and I know you really like, the Beastie Boys.
Sure.
These were a bunch of friends who came together to make a whole lot of different kinds of music, but in the background, you had all these other influences wanting them to not be a rap group. Well, that's not what they are. Fight for Your Right is not a rap song. So why are the Beastie Boys thought of as a rap group, but their most popular song is not a rap song? And honestly, that's why I don't really like genres. I don't like genres of movies or music or video games or anything under the sun. Genres try to put you in a box, and I think that is the antithesis to what artists really want to be.
And when you're talking specifically about rap, it is built on a foundation of sampling. They are putting whatever they are listening to, whatever they're into right now, into the music that they're creating. Here's a little sound from a jazz album, and here's a little sound from a big band album, and here's something I made up myself on the keys.
Yeah, Betsy, I think my favorite shot in this movie is when they're introducing each main member of NWA, and Dr. Dre is laying on the floor with his headphones on, with his head surrounded by all of the different albums that he listens to. It's on his mind.
It's metaphorical.
I love that so much.
It's also got great sun flare, and it's just a nice shot.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about how this movie is made. But first, we're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. We will be right back.
Are your ears tired of the same boring podcasts? Is the wait until the next episode of Never Seen It too much to bear? Then why not try Never Seen It premium content? The exclusive episodes on patreon.com/neverseenitpod take care of those hard-to-clean areas in your mind. It can handle dramas, romance, horror, and so much more. Use Never Seen It premium content during dental work, while skydiving, or even in your car. It's even gluten-free. So what are you waiting for? Try patreon.com/neverseenitpod today.
You know, despite this movie being about a rap group, I think the structure of the movie is very reminiscent of a lot of different kinds of these movies where it's kind of a biopic, it is kind of about the music and the industry. But one movie kind of came to mind here as a comparison, and see if you agree with me. I got Social Network vibes out of this entire movie, because it's showing you the origins of something that has never really been done before. And there's a whole lot of backstabbing, there's a whole lot of just conflict between all the different people who are involved. But at its core, this is a business. And people are in it to make money, and yes, there's some artistry involved here, but at its core, this is about making money.
No, I totally get that comparison because it feels extremely personal at different times. Yes, it starts out as business, but there are times where the lines get blurred between the business and the personal.
And like, think about the perspective of Ice Cube here, where he was the one writing the majority of the lyrics on the NWA records, and he never really got the credit that he deserved. And meanwhile, he's kind of just in the background, waiting for his turn, waiting for his contract, waiting for his payday, when he suddenly says, you know what, I'm out. The tour is done. My obligation to this group is over. I'm going to go off and use my name that I have garnered throughout this entire process, make my own record with the same company that signed us in the first place, but make my own record, make my own success, and I'm going to outshine all you fuckers.
And he ends up being the most savvy of the entire group because he knows he has the talent and he's in it long enough by himself that he figures out, okay, I am not making money and I'm sick of this shit. Maybe he goes about it the wrong way, like taking a baseball bat to the guy's office.
I think that is where he is learning his lesson here of trusting these motherfuckers and not having a guy in your corner like an actual friend who has your back.
He's tired of being manipulated and bullied into trying to get him to sign things he doesn't want to sign without reading it first. He doesn't want to be tied down to any shitty deal. He goes out and he starts his own career. And when he's not getting paid, he points out how upset he is about that.
Yeah.
Again, maybe not the smartest way, but he does get his. And then later in the movie, they show all of the other stuff he gets to do when we get into the 90s. He starts pursuing acting. I didn't know he wrote Friday.
I had no idea that he had any hand in writing that movie. I knew he was in it, but no, I had no idea he was actually a part of the creative process there. Also, they're talking about how he was in Boys in the Hood.
And the weird little thing about Friday is the guy who directed Friday directed this movie. He directed Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
So we're bringing all of these guys who have been in the picture for a long time in on the creative process. And then on top of it, you put your own son to play yourself in the movie.
Referring to himself, saying saying a line that is actually talking about himself. Like, I'm about to have a baby, it's 1991. Oh wait, that's me.
I assume it's him. I'm not really sure.
It's 100% him. But yeah, I don't know if there was a better choice to actually play you than your son. And holy shit, is he talented as hell? Oh, by the way, he looks and sounds exactly like Ice Cube.
Trent, when the movie first came out 11 years ago, I thought, wow, that's really good casting. That guy looks quite a lot like Ice Cube. And then I found out exactly why. But yeah, he's really good in this. All of the guys are. When we get the scene at the end of the movie, the guy playing Eazy-E, when they tell him he's HIV positive and he's got maybe 6 months to live, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? At this point in the movie, his life is just about to turn around. His group is going to get back together. He's going to taste success again. He's going to stop having all these problems. He's free of this guy. And then he gets this news. And he has this really emotional scene. And then you told me in real life, he found out he was HIV positive. They put it out to the news cycle and he was dead in 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks. And they were reading a letter he wrote to his fans because he had enough time to know he was going to die. And I started getting emotional. So this movie's taken me on all kinds of journeys here.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really gets you more than a lot of these other movies that we're covering is that these are all real people. Now, I knew that you knew that Eazy-E died fairly young, but you did not know that he had HIV.
I did not. I knew he died in 1995, and I didn't look into the reason why because I've just heard the name Eazy-E.
Sure.
But as I keep saying, I like that they actually spent the most time with him as the core of this story because
I mean, he had the least amount of time on this earth.
I think it's also a way that the other guys in the group are paying their respects to him.
Yeah.
Like they know what an important part of NWA he was, and this is his legacy, is them showing it in this movie. He wasn't perfect. He had a lot of problems, but they also respected his vision. They respect the memory of the guy they lost. He's still, at the end of the day, their friend, and what happened to him really fucking sucked.
Yeah, what sucks here is that everybody else saw it before he did, but he did see it. By the end, he wanted to make amends. He was making amends and about to get everything back together.
When you're in your 30s, you suddenly realize all the trivial things you were fighting about 10 years ago are stupid. Why the fuck was I worrying about that?
You also learn about the business. You learn that these are some people that I can trust and some people that I can't trust. which is why you really need to hire lawyers before you sign paperwork, especially when it comes to your own livelihood.
And there's a lot of pieces of the movie outside of like the Eazy-E stuff where I knew names. I knew there was like crossover with different things. Like you clearly are more well versed in this than I am because you are a fan of rap music in a way that I'm not. I like it, but I have not dedicated a lot of time to it. But I was alive in the 90s. So when they're bringing Tupac in, I'm like, well, I know who that is. I know
Sure.
California Love. I am a child of the 90s. It was inescapable in 1996 or whenever that song dropped. I also knew Snoop Dogg. The fact that Lakeith Stanfield is in this movie, he's a skinny little 24-year-old boy about 4 years before I knew who he was.
So is Snoop Dogg, by the way. He was a really skinny fucker back in the day.
I also didn't really appreciate how much of a producer Dr. Dre was at the beginning and now. That's all he does. He hasn't put out an album in years because he doesn't need to. And if you don't have anything compelling going on in your life, I could see why you just don't put anything out. But his music, the actual instrumental and the production, that's what he has devoted his efforts to in most of my lifetime. NWA was kind of already over and done before I even knew they existed.
Yeah, and honestly, Betsy, I don't think that I was really aware of any of these names, any of these groups, any of these songs, or really just rap music in general. I didn't know it until about 1996. Again, going back to when Tupac was really a big thing. It's when Biggie really hit the scene and Puff Daddy and all this West Coast, East Coast stuff that really infected everybody's psyche. And unfortunately, it all came to a head with the assassination of these two guys. And the industry was never the same after that.
We also get some of the fringe players like Suge Knight, somebody whose name I'm intimately familiar with because I watched a lot of Entertainment Tonight in the late 90s.
Okay.
But I don't know anything about him other than he's a piece of shit.
Oh,
And
Suge Knight is, oh, wow.
I'm
If
really...
you knew the rest of the story with him, he was a very, very bad man.
I'm glad that they are honest about his representation in the movie, and they're really holding back, I'm sure, with what a piece of shit he was. He's not portrayed as a good person in this movie
Not at all.
all.
Not at all. But compared to what the real man was, this is nothing, I'm sure. But yeah, it's all these ancillary people and stories and the backgrounds of like, bye Felicia and shit like that.
It's just a casual thing someone says in the movie,
Right.
and then it ends up in Friday.
I know. But all these guys just became cultural pillars in their own way. Like Ice Cube ended up making fucking family comedies, for fuck's sake.
It's so weird.
I know.
How did that happen?
Dr. Dre became this business mogul that had fucking Beats headphones, and Apple bought him for billions of dollars. He is richer than any other guy out there, save for maybe Jay-Z.
And I would be willing to bet most people now, like young people, if you ask them who Dr. Dre is, they won't have a fucking clue. Or if they know Beats by Dre, that's the extent of it. They don't know he was a rapper, or they do know, but they've never heard his music. Their knowledge of him now is very different than the knowledge we would have had when, we were kids in the 90s. We knew a very different Dr. Dre.
Well, we barely even knew him.
We mostly found out about him through Eminem. I feel like we actually knew more about Eminem, and then there's this other guy who is with him.
On a deeper level, yes. I think our generation and a little bit younger than us, we became a lot more aware of Dr. Dre's kind of position in the industry and being a producer and bringing these younger guys out. We learned more in that era of rap music than we ever did in the 90s, but that's us. Maybe if I was 5 years younger or maybe didn't grow up in South Dakota, I would have had a more intimate knowledge of NWA, Dr. Dre, everybody involved here. But I know, Betsy, if we keep on going, we're going to be sitting here all freaking night. So did you have anything else that you wanted to really talk about when it comes to Straight Outta Compton?
Mostly, I get why people were talking about this when it came out, and there was a contingent of people that really wanted this to get a Best Picture nomination because it is a really well-structured story. Like I said earlier, I believe the majority of the things that happen in this movie really happened, or some version of it happened. which makes for compelling storytelling. They also got a really good director. It looks great. They got a guy who's known for doing a lot of music videos and who has done work with these guys personally.
Yep.
And it does give it that cool sheen that music videos have. But it doesn't feel like you're watching a music video. It just has the energy of something like that.
This is the difference, I think. This is the other thing that I read in the trivia, and I think it really helps the authenticity here. Each actor contributed their own piece to re-recording the entirety of the Straight Outta Compton album. They re-recorded everything, every single track as a group in order for them to get into character.
And I have not listened to the album Straight Outta Compton, but I've heard Ice Cube before, and I've heard things like, Fuck the Police, where I know what Ice Cube sounds like. And yeah, I'm like, okay, this sounds like him, right? I'm not imagining O'Shea Jackson sounding exactly like his father.
You're really not, but hey, they are father and son, so it makes sense.
It's easier for him,
But
certainly.
what I'm saying is they did everything. They didn't just dub over the mouths and they're just putting in the original track over the top of it.
They didn't lip sync.
This is just them.
That's cool. I do think that is a critical part of the creative process that so many biopics glean over, where they're like, you don't really need to sing. You don't really need to rap. It's like, no, sweetie, do you know how hard rapping is? To even be able to lip sync to it, you might as well just learn to do it for real.
Yeah. And like with a lot of other biopics, it's really, really hard. Like when Rami Malek played Freddie Mercury, he is never, ever going to sound like Freddie Mercury. Nobody does. So I can't fault him for having Freddie dubbed over the top of him. But at the very least, he got his mannerisms, he got his mouth movements, everything under the sun in order to embody this person, this real person. So I do not discount any of the stuff that they're showing me in this movie as it pertains to portraying real people.
And the last thing is just a tiny thing from this movie that made me laugh. When the guy shows up who actually gets it, when Paul Giamatti brings in these different record execs to this live show and says, these are the guys you need to be signing, these crusty old white men do not know what they are experiencing except for one. And this guy represents the California Raisin Men, which is such a 1980s reference that I am shocked if anybody in 2026 will still even know what that was. But because you and I were there, we definitely remember the California Raisin Men.
Yeah. And don't knock it because that album went gold off of a fucking gimmick like that. So you can't say that these guys don't know at least something about selling records.
But it is an interesting selling point when you're trying to recruit these guys for your label, and that's the biggest name you have to offer them.
Right. But then he says, oh yeah, it went gold, almost platinum. You see all those guys' faces light up? Like, man, I would love to have a gold record.
They don't have to think too hard about signing with this guy because he's there, he gets it, and they're like, okay.
Well, and think about what happened with Josie and the Pussycats. All they want is to sign with a major label. Guess what? This guy is offering you a contract. Take it, because it's more than what you got coming into this thing. And I think that's really going to be the overarching thing is, hey, I know it's all about, singing and the arts and everything under the sun. But at the end of the day, you just want the money, the money, the fame, the girls, everything like that. But
there are prices,
but mainly money.
But there's a price to pay with all of that. And we see it in this movie. We've seen the story 100 times, but this one really happened. Like I keep saying, I buy it because this was so well documented at the time it was happening.
And in the grand scheme of all of music history, this happened fucking yesterday. So it's very fresh in people's minds. But anyway, all right. That is going to be the end of Straight Outta Compton for now. If you folks would like to tell us what you thought about Straight Outta Compton, tell us your stories about all your rap tapes from back in the day, send us all your emails to neverseenitpod@gmail.com. Just like our superfan Stephanie did about Josie and the Pussycats, the movie we just did and we just talked about. She says, this movie was on in my house constantly when I was in high school. My sister had it on VHS and had one of those TV VCR combos in her room. We watched it all the time. My sister, my mom, and I went as Josie and the Pussycats for Halloween one year.
Obviously.
I would love to see those photos, Stephanie. Hopefully you have some. She says, this movie is ridiculous and fun, but really clever. I love it. I love all the characters and the little jokes. I love du jour. To this day, my sister and I will just say, quote, du jour means friendship. That Rachel Lee Cook rom-com from a few years ago was pretty cute and fun. Love you guys, from Superfan Stephanie.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It wouldn't be hard to find if I wanted to watch it. I just don't currently have Netflix.
And really no desire to watch it either.
Someday, Trent, we have a Patreon show for that. I could make it happen.
Hey, there's a transition. If you would like even more content from us, go to patreon.com/neverseenitpod, where we have 5 other monthly shows that come out every single Wednesday and the first Friday of the month. Make sure to go to the webpage because Apple is still charging extra for you folks who are signed up through the Patreon app. Don't do that. You don't have to give us any extra money. It's only $5 a month. That $5 gets you access to our entire catalog of extra content over on Patreon. We're coming up on 400 episodes on this show. We got even more over there. So come check it out. If you like to follow us, we're on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok. You know what would be great for everybody to do? I don't think I've ever said this before. But you know a great way to get the word out about Never Seen It? Go to YouTube and or TikTok and share some of the clips that we post almost every single day over there. Send it out to your friends, repost it, whatever it is that you kids do on the social media stuff. Share all of our stuff so that more people can listen to Never Seen It. But I am done talking about Straight Outta Compton. Betsy, we got one more movie to cover in this series we are calling I'm With the Band. What is our final movie?
Trent, I'm really excited about this one because this movie has been on the watch list pretty much since we started the podcast. I have seen it, you have not, but next week that ends because you are finally going to see Almost Famous.
Almost Famous is a movie I think I've started to watch like 2 or 3 times and I've never actually gone through it. So it's finally time. Come back next week for Almost Famous. Until then, my name's Trent.
My name is Betsy.
This has been Never Seen It.
Bye.